Just down here.
Up here, darling.
Up here. Mr. Bernard, into this camera, please. Thank you. Oh, that's good. All right.
All right. This morning, yes.
That's lovely.
Okay.
Look this way. It's that way, yeah.
Thank you.
This way, please.
What better way for the Mermaid Theatre to start up in business again than with a visit from a young lady who certainly looked as though she'd found a new home. But this isn't the first time the Mermaid has celebrated its own opening. 22 years ago, it was doing exactly the same thing.
London. 5 months ago, this was a derelict bomb site on Thameside. Now, through the enthusiasm of actor Bernard Miles, it's to become the Mermaid, the City of London's first theatre. To celebrate the opening stage of building, showgirls set off from Drury Lane, London's oldest theatre, to carry the flaming torch of dramatic tradition to a roof party at the new theatre site. The girls were joined on the last lap by Norman Wisdom, who arrived apparently on his last legs.
Norman Wisdom was just one of the show business names who helped create the Mermaid not long after the war. It began as the brainchild of Bernard Miles, an actor who set out to build a theatre of his own and ended up being dubbed Lord Miles for his efforts. 30 years ago, the first Mermaid, a copy of an Elizabethan stage, was built by Bernard and Josephine Miles in their garden in St John's Wood. 2 summer seasons there were so popular that in 1953 the Lord Mayor of London asked them to put up their stage for some coronation celebrations. The Mermaid had arrived in the city and it's never left. In a bombed-out warehouse at Puddle Dock in Blackfriars, Bernard and Josephine Miles set about building the first and only theatre in the City of London for more than 300 years. It was a historic site. Medieval monks had acted plays here, and Shakespeare had lived nearby. Today, the Mermaid has lost its waterfront to a tangle of roads and has had to pay its way by sharing the site with a finance company. But it's kept the historical atmosphere.
We know that where we put our feet down, Shakespeare's walked, and Ben Jonson and Christopher Marlowe and Beaumont and Fletcher and Massinger, all the great dramatists of the Elizabethan era walked around here on the streets. They're boot marks. We feel them treading, and we see them in corridors at night, ghostly figures, writing, scripting down. Oh, he wants another line, a comedy line. Okay, Shakespeare puts in another comedy line.
When we first came, the river was all round us, close to it, and Puddle Dock was just up the side there. So we believed that when Shakespeare came from his house and wanted to go across the globe, we must come to Puddle Dock. So there we are. The river was attractive, and we found an old warehouse which had been bombed. And that's the beginning, really. That was the start of making a theatre out of an old warehouse.
Well, when he tasted it, he could hardly believe it. He said, "This is a lovely drink."
For 30 years, Bernard Miles has worked at any kind of acting that would help to keep the Mermaid alive.
Well, it looks good, tastes good, and by golly, it does you good.
He's the last of an old breed of actor-managers, starring in shows and running the company. The theatrical names Lord Miles attracted made the Mermaid an interesting sort of place. Glenda Jackson opened in Alfie in the 60s. Willie Rushton has trod the Mermaid boards in Gulliver's Travels. Many Mermaid shows went on to the West End and even Broadway, like Whose Life Is It Anyway, starring Tom Conti and Jane Asher. The Mermaid became a theatre where new ideas were given a chance and where actors seemed to like working. Spike Milligan was just one of them.
If somebody said to you, what's special about the Mermaid Theatre, how would you sum it up?
Loaded question. I'll give you a loaded answer. Bang! It's the excessive amount of enterprise that goes with it. And it's got some heart and blood running through it rather than just money.
People really care.
I care about it too, yes. It's the only man in the world who would ever given me a break as an actor. Everybody thinks I'm a twit who goes on saying, "Hello." And he gave me a straight part to play, Ben Gunn, and it was very successful. So I think the man is very brave.
Another thing actors like is the shape of the place.
The stage here is open all the way round, so the actors feel it's easier to get across to members of the audience. And the theatre's small. Even with the new alterations, there are still only 600 or so seats. And it doesn't really matter where you sit. Anywhere in the auditorium, everybody can see and hear equally well. It's what Bernard Miles calls a democratic layout. When he first designed his intimate theatre like this, it was a fairly revolutionary idea. Since then, it's been copied all over the country.
Another clever Mermaid idea was to keep the audience happy by feeding them. In the beginning, Lady Miles said plays were a luxury, but food a necessity. She was right. The Mermaid's restaurants and bars have brought in 80% of its income and kept the theatre afloat.
We had to learn the hard way. We used to go out and buy our food often at 5:30, 5:45 in the morning, Smithfield, Billingsgate and the commodity market, buying food. And in the end you get to know fishmongers and they say, Fred, no, on the top there, there's 4 halibuts. No, that's the one, bring it over there. And there'd be people up in Smithfield and they'd say, I've got got some lovely sirloin for you as well. So they began to know us and we got all the joy of being good customers.
As the big night drew close, the Mermaid's newest cast was still working hard on last-minute rehearsals for Eastward Ho! It's another of the Jacobean plays they've always been good at reviving. But this time, like the theatre, the play's been thoroughly revamped.
Well, Mildred, my father may be a flat-cap tradesman dealing in commodities and cash, but I'll never marry a vulgar merchant. I must be a lady.
Lady Flash.
I've been pestered by city suitors, none of them compared to Petronelle. His gracious manner has won my favour.
The fact he owned a castle helped as well.
Lady Flash, let her pass. I'm not your ordinary city dame, but the mistress of a vast estate.
You're Flash by name and Flash by nature. You were born to be a Lady Flash.
Do you think the new Mermaid in its new setting is going to be as successful and happy as the old one?
Well, I pray to God, if you're watching in, that if you're British and you have heart for your own theatre, in the land, the area where Shakespeare used to work in his great theatre, you will come to this theatre, you will support it as much as you can. It's better than going getting drunk, it's better than sitting indoors. Come here and see some live theatre, a great theatre which is a great British theatre and very enterprising. I recommend it more than Galloway's cough mixture.